welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm here with Jo Wood. Hey Jo, how are you?
I am good. I'm good. It feels like it's been a little while, hasn't it? I think you and Ollie did the podcast last week. I was on holiday, and it's good to be back.
It's really nice to catch up with you, actually. I feel like I've missed you, Jo. I've missed you from my life. So I'm really pleased you're back from your holidays and we're sort of back into a bit of a routine. I'm sure that everyone watching this right now feels like if you've got kids that have gone back to school or you're in that sort of September, everyone's back in the office. It feels like, oh my gosh, quickly catch up with everything that we've missed. And there is a little rush at this point, isn't there?
Really is. I think we all feel like school kids in September. It doesn't matter how long ago you left school. You feel like you need a new pencil case, a new notebook, and a fresh start.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Well, look, we wanted to have a chat. We wanted it to just be the two of us because we feel like we're at this new year, new start point in the year, I suppose. And we wanted to talk about how do we make sure we finish 2024 strong. It's actually closer than I think. My kids keep asking already when Christmas is. So, so the end of the year isn't far away. I mean, there's Halloween stuff in the shops. So that is the clue, isn't it?
Well, in Morrison's, there was a Christmas aisle when I went there on Monday evening, and that really upset me. I feel like, I'd literally just stepped off the plane, coming home from holiday, and there was Christmas stuff in the aisles. Too soon.
No, that's mad. Okay, I'm not ready for that. I'm really not ready. Halloween I can just about cope with, but otherwise no. So if you are watching this and you're thinking I'm 2/3 of the way into the year, I really want to make sure I get the most out of 2024. And I know when we take the pressure off in the summer, getting back into this rhythm, and there seems to be a lot of pressure on us because we put a lot off, don't we? When it's August, we're like, well, I'll get round to that in September. And then suddenly we feel this pressure. And we wanted to talk about, like, what do you do now? If you're at that point, what do you have to do? I think it starts with reviewing where you are, like having that look backwards, reviewing what's happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting thinking about, when you hit the new year in January, what were you thinking you were going to achieve in 2024? But also really being kind to yourself and reflecting on what's happened so far and trying to remember what's been good. Because I think this is why I love it when we get the opportunity to enter awards, because they're really reflective. And I don't think we reflect enough. We're always looking forward and looking at the next thing and the next goal. And sometimes we achieve something and think, right, what's next? Rather than, wow, aren't I good? Aren't I clever? Aren't I amazing that I've actually achieved that? We feel less comfortable with the reflection and the kind of self-praise and just think, what's next? So I think it's a really important thing. So if you haven't recently applied for an award, there's been quite a few of them out there. But if you haven't had that chance, I think it's really important to sit and reflect and think about the things that have gone well, but also things that didn't go quite so well, and think about, well, how would I have liked them to have gone? So maybe you have just come out of a mad summer holidays and you're thinking, I couldn't do that again. I don't want to have that August again. Or you're coming out thinking, that was amazing. That was brilliant. I love that. Just reflect and think, what would you like it to look like differently? But really think of those things. And so many times when we speak to people, if we try and get them to share their wins, they struggle, really struggle. And then all of a sudden, somebody will say, oh, yes, I forgot. I got this, I passed this exam, or I got my practice license, or, oh, I got an office and I've set up, and I've got my first member of staff. When they get started, then it's like an avalanche of remembering all the amazing things that you've done. And for me, I have to sometimes look through my calendar to try and remember where I was, what I've done, and that can be a great tool to kind of start this avalanche going.
Yeah, I love that. Even I can remember us doing some work where we were looking back over the years, like I think it's really common to lack confidence, and I think it's a bit of a habit about feeling good about your achievements and feeling okay to celebrate them. It's definitely something we support in our community. We want people to shout about the things that are going well, but it's not easy to do that because I think a lot of us, if you're in the UK, you might have been brought up with your parents saying, don't show off, you should be like seen and not heard, and all those kind of things. So when we go out and blow our own trumpet, it doesn't feel like it's okay. So we do have to learn that it is okay. And actually, if you can allow yourself to celebrate stuff, you feel good and better in yourself, and that then it's like it just keeps perpetuating, doesn't it? And it helps you to feel more confident and take those steps, and then you achieve more, and so on and so on. But you could do this by just looking back at like, what have I achieved in the summer? And then, okay, so this is the 1 or 2 things that I've done in the summer that I feel really good about. And then what happened before that? Like, what's happened since the spring? What's happened since Christmas? You said, Jo, obviously we have coaching. We are coached. We can't be good if we're not coached ourselves. So we were talking to our business coach recently, and you were reflecting on your summer, and you said, I've had the best summer I've ever had.
Yeah, I really have. I have still felt present, but when I've done a little bit of work here and there, I was able to be really present in that piece of work. And then when I've been with my family, I felt really present with them. And I've always struggled with that. I've always felt like I'm not doing anything well, and I'm juggling too many things. And I have done a lot of work and realized that and sometimes when I walk into my office and I think I've got this to do, this to do, this to do, I stop myself now and I go, but you can only do one thing at a time. So what's the one thing we're just going to concentrate on now? And I think maybe it's something that's come with age, where I've realized that I'm really bad at multitasking. Look, I've just coming onto this, me and Zoe have gone, we better shut down all of our other like windows that are open, because I like looking at all the windows you've opened in the day on your Google can see like an insight into your brain, and I'm a bit like, wow, where has my brain been going? all over the place. So I've learned to be okay with the fact that, and setting myself more manageable, because I know that if I write a massive to-do list and I don't achieve it, I feel bad and I feel like I've failed, when actually, when we look and think, wow, we've actually done this. Someone once taught me the art of a to-do list rather than a to-do list, and writing down all the things you've done rather than all the things you need to do. And it's that kind of switch. And I think that's why it's really important to reflect, because you might be here thinking, right, oh my goodness, it's nearly the end of 2024 and I was going to do this and going to do that, and I haven't done this and I haven't done that, rather than stopping and going, but what have I done?
Yeah. And that reflection on, you saying like, I've really got the balance this summer, and that's a massive win for me, rather than going, oh, but I didn't do that and I didn't do that and I didn't make time for X, Y, and Z that I could have done, but saying I was able to go and enjoy the summer and then I achieved X, Y, Z. Then you can think, well, how do I get more of that next time? Because unless we reflect and look back, we're like reinventing every time, aren't we? We're going into the similar or the same situation without the learning from last experience.
Yeah. And like, I'm also very, very aware that the reason I had a really great summer and the last, like 21 have been a little bit more tricky, is because I had 3 children, young children, that this year it was at a stage where they just felt a lot older, and we had a really nice time together, and that they like to lie in, so I got to work and do a bit in the morning. Whereas when you've got little ones, that's not the same. So I'm not sitting here going, oh, if you've got young children, you're like, well, it's easy for you. I get that. I've spent all my summers doing. I'm just saying, even in the last couple of years, when they were older, and I could have had a better, I still didn't, because my work was invading my brain in a different way. So I think there are ways, and I've spoken to quite a few bookkeepers over the summer that have been feeling overwhelmed, and they're like, I feel like I'm not seeing my kids, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, if you're with your kids, we've got to learn to stop trying to think about work in that moment, because you just do everything, like you just don't give anything your all. So just choose to be present. And And when they, I used to do quite a lot of work in the evening, and I was really good at it then. Now in my 40s, I'd be rubbish because I can't work in the evening. Zoe knows that. I just want to sleep. I've got more energy in the morning. But as our children changes, our bodies change as well, and our energy levels change, and it's okay. But I am really celebrating this year, and I'm like, wow, it's been one of those things that I've really found hard. But this year's been really good, so I'm going to celebrate it.
Yeah, good for you. So when you're reviewing your year so far in terms of how to finish 2024 strong, let's look back at the year so far. Let's think about what the workload's been like. How comfortable do we feel about that? What's the balance been like? How do we feel about that? But also, because it's so linked, and I don't think we always realize how linked it is, look at whether the pricing you've got in your practice has allowed you to do that. Because often the reason we're overworked and stressed and not able to take a break and don't feel we can have time with kids and things is because the pricing doesn't support us in getting the support we need or building the structure we need to build the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is a pricing issue. And if you're feeling stressed out or you haven't had a great year, there could be a pricing element in there because you haven't got the funds and the profit to be able to resource correctly, whether that's with software or staff, or equipment or anything. And it all does come down to, is there enough money in the business to be able to afford you the luxury of spending some time with your family or whatever that is. I mean, even looking back, I know we had lots of people at the beginning of January thinking, that we speak to so many people, I'm going to start my practice on this date, or I've put in for my practice license and I'm waiting for it and I want to get my ducks in a row. Have you, can you go back to that notebook? Can you go back to wherever maybe you've created a vision board and have a look at what you said you'd do at the beginning of the year and maybe tick off some of the things because you might not have even realised you've done them.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Okay, so we've looked back and then we're going to start looking at the rest of this year. So Q4, what do we need to do, or a little bit more than Q4? Like, what do we need to do in the next 13, 14, 15 weeks or whatever till the end of the year? So there might be some things that are left from that to-do list at the beginning of the year, or the goals that you haven't done or looked at, and you might review that and decide those things don't belong on the list anymore. So that's always a good thing too, to be like, actually, that's not going to serve me. Also, what we can do is think about, well, which things, just based on the time that I really have available, what's realistic for me? Because some of the reason we feel overwhelmed is that we aren't realistic. Yesterday, first day back at school for the kids, Joe, you know this, we were talking about something on Monday night, I think, and I wrote this list. I've got it on my little whiteboard next to me, and it's got about 8 things I had to do. And I was like, great, I can do those between 9 and 10 a.m. tomorrow, those 8 things. I didn't, obviously. I didn't do that. So, and I think, and I'm definitely guilty of being the person who is like completely, I don't know, overestimates my time and underestimates how long things are going to take. So be realistic about like what availability you've got. Sometimes it's about deciding, I'm not going to watch Netflix, I'm going to make time for something that's important for me instead. But sometimes you have to sit down and watch Netflix, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I had a session with one of my business coaches yesterday, and we did something around this, and I'd love to invite people to do this because it was a different way. So, we've just said about looking back over the last, 8 months of the year, and now thinking about looking forward to the end of this year. But what she did with us was actually, we did a bit of meditation, we shut our eyes, we sat and we listened to some nice music, and she talked us through about going into the future and going to look around September and seeing what we would like to pick up there. And what she was talking about, pebbles. She gave us 5 pebbles: spirituality, money, business, health, and relationships. And she was like, pick up each pebble. And she was telling us which pebble we picked up and what in that area would we like to experience, work on, grow. Is the pebble going to get bigger, or is it going to stay the same size? Has it got some dust on it that we need to get rid of that dust and like let go and shed some things? And and then pick up the pebbles and then take them into October. And then we walked around in our heads to October. What did October look like? She kind of gave us the thought about what it was going to feel like, the air, the winter. She actually played a crackling fire at one point when we got into winter, and it was really nice just going through, and although those areas in our lives, what did we want to focus on in those areas? Because yes, this is a podcast about bookkeeping, but as we know, business and life, there's no like clear cut lines. It all merges into one. And if your health isn't good, you can't run a business. And if your relationships aren't strong with your family, then most of your relationships with your clients will suffer. So, and we just walked around, and then we sat there at the end of the year at Christmas time, right at the end of the year, going into New Year. And she was like, how are you going to feel when you've got these rocks and these pebbles, and you've achieved these things and you've let go of that? And what are you going to want to feel? And what's been the most important pebble that you've been carrying with you? What's the one that really needs your focus? And it was just a really nice way of looking at things, rather than me usually sitting down with a pen and paper, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to have achieved? Because that feels kind of a masculine like energy. And she was like, sometimes if we soften it, step more into our feminine, and that can be men as well, to step into your feminine ways of thinking and just letting it flow a bit more and what feels good. So yeah, that was a really lovely exercise yesterday, and yeah,
Jo, that's lovely. I was picturing myself, and I was like thinking about what it would be like to walk into October, and I was like trying to see it. It was really interesting. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about ending 2024 in a strong position, can you picture what you think? For many of you, if you're celebrating Christmas or what you're doing in the winter holidays, what are you going to be doing at that point? And what does that look like for you? And how do you want to feel? Like, are you taking a break? Who are you spending your time with? Where are you? And if you can think about that, and then we can think about those things you were talking about, Jo, around like money and relationships and like balance and time for yourself. What activities do we need to do? Because I think in business, like if we're thinking about growing a business, you were probably thinking about things like client retention and new business. So what activities do we need to do to feel like that in terms of client retention and new business? And it might not be a to-do list of things. Do you know, someone said to me yesterday, I wrote it down. She said to me, as another business coach, she said to me, Zoe, you're about speed, action, and instant implementation. And I was like, oh, yes, you're right. I was like, that's exactly what I'm about. But that means that knowing that about myself, I hadn't articulated it in those words before. I know that I'm definitely someone who likes a list and likes to like churn work and get through it. And you know this about me, Jo. Like I find it quite hard to sit back and be like, oh, okay, what's happening here, and how do I want to feel, and all of those kind of things. So if I think about how do I want to feel during the winter break, and then I think, well, what does that mean in terms of what would make me feel like that if I was to nurture client relationships for the next 3 months or so? What would I do to enhance those? Where do they need enhancing or improving, or what can I do? And what activities do I need to do in terms of new business that feel good for me? Then that is a very different way of viewing it than post on LinkedIn or whatever, have this meeting. That it's really different, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And we all know that we all are very different. Me and you are different, and we look at things in a different way. But I think everyone can take a step back and think, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, learning about yourself is so interesting, and not berating yourself and not being hard on yourself, but being curious. Oh, that's weird. I've noticed that I'm like that. And I noticed that I have lists everywhere. I actually felt really called out the other day because someone was like, when you open your cupboard, do water bottles fall on your head? And have you got a million notebooks everywhere? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you might have ADHD. That was really making me laugh. I was like, oh my God, I feel really like seen. I feel like TikTok just tries to call everyone out as having ADHD. But I'm like, oh, it's interesting. I do have a lot of notebooks, but actually it's interesting because I had my remarkable and I love that. But our habits all of a sudden change. Those little consistent, tiny little things that we're doing. And I'm like, why did that change? And then I thought, oh, do you know what? I think one day it just ran out of charge. And then I stopped that little micro habit. And it's really interesting. It's like, oh, well, what micro habits could I be doing that would make me feel better? So actually, my Remarkable is on charge right now, because I know that I really liked using that. Just life gets in the way. Something happens, battery runs out, and you forget about it. So what little things, and what I loved about that exercise was that what came out to me wasn't massive things that I wanted to change and do. It was small things. It was seeing my family more and cooking for people more, because I feel like over the summer I haven't really done that. And that's like my love language and I like to do it. And I was thinking, oh, why do I always wait till Christmas dinner? Why don't I do a Sunday lunch once a month and invite family around then? Why do I always wait till Christmas? And it was that kind of little light bulb moment, rather than massive, big, I want to earn $1 million. It wasn't nothing like that came up. And it was like, oh, I'd like to feel stronger, especially because, I don't feel as strong as I'd like to. And I've started my daughter has a pony, and I've started lifting water in the mornings to give it to the pony. And I'm like, I want to feel really strong. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like I want to lift massive weights. It was like, I want to pick up the water buckets with ease, like little things. And actually, I thought, oh, that'd feel really nice if I was in that position. Then I'd feel really good position, and feel happy about myself. So I just find it interesting when we go in a bit softer, we come out with softer answers, which actually aren't really big things, and they can be changed very easily.
Nice. That's what we need, isn't it, when we're changing a routine? Because I think there's such a temptation to be like, right, clear everything. I'm starting everything again, and then we're like, no,
it's too overwhelming, isn't it?
With it, totally, yeah. So this is a really good time for us to tell you about the sofa sessions, which are happening on the 23rd of September. Jo and I are inviting some special guests to chat to us on our virtual sofa for a day. We will be sharing the registration details really soon. So make sure you're on our email list, and then you'll be getting those emails with registration details, or look in our Facebook community, the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. We have a whole day of sessions with amazing guests happening on Monday, the 23rd of September. I think we've got 5 sessions all around business growth, about like the realities of running your business. It's going to be lovely, really lovely people in that lineup who we can't, like, they're people who we would normally spend time chatting on the sofa with. And we were like, imagine if we could get this in front of you guys and you can see what it's like to be like part of our community, and what kind of things we really talk about. So a little bit different to the podcast, but just some, I suppose, like juicy gossip is how I want to share it.
Yeah, come and join us. Bring a cup of tea, bring a cup of coffee, and we are just going to have a proper chat. And I think these is, Zoe and I run a mastermind, and afterwards, whenever we've done like a full day session, we might pop to a pub or pop somewhere for a drink afterwards and just like debrief on the day. And in that moment, we have the best chats. And that's what we want to recreate. We want to have some really good chats with some good friends and share it with you, so you can get those little magic golden nuggets that you're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And I think that comes out when people are more relaxed, rather than feeling like it's a webinar or a podcast. It's just having a chat.
Well, exactly like this. I think if you're watching this, I've seen Nicola here and Kirsty's here, and everyone's ready to finish 2024 strong. We didn't need to give you a massive strategy and a to-do list. We need to be thinking differently about what we've done so far and what we need to do next. So join us on the 23rd of September for the sofa sessions. All the details are coming really soon. It's all going to be in the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. All the details will be shared there. And we would also like to invite you to join us on the sofa on the 24th of September. We're going to be available for one-to-one sessions. So join us for your own sofa session on the 24th. So all of the communications coming out about the sofa sessions will include how to book your own sofa session as well. That will be private, just you and us, to talk about what's going on for you, how we can support you, and give you some strategies to like take the next step. Because sometimes it's good to have someone's eyes on your business to say, okay, let's break this down and let's focus on this thing now. Because if you're in that point of overwhelm, or you're at a turning point, you just need to run something past people. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And then you'll be able to go into the final quarter, which is October to December, absolutely strong, with some fire in your belly and have really good direction. And so, yeah, we're opening up the diary to have our own sofa chats with you. Sofa sessions, love it. I'm so excited. It's going to be a really good, fun couple of days. And why we're doing it this way around is so that if you watch on the Monday, the 23rd, and you watch something, you might be like, oh, I want to know more about that. Or how would that affect my business? Or can I do that? And that's why we want to open it up for you to jump on a call with us afterwards so that you can get the answers to your questions.
Perfect. I'm really excited about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. It's been lovely to be back here. I feel like we're back in a routine, and we'll see you all next week for another episode of the podcast. So that's it for now. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.